Today in the Sartorial Chef, it's leftover rice. I'm taking Spanish rice and turning it into stuffed peppers with chorizo and provolone cheese. Then I'm adding Spanish rice to a classic frittata with chorizo, sauteed vegetables, and topped with Mexican cheeses. Lastly, it's a Spanish rice take on a classic arancini with a queso dipping sauce. So why don't you pull up a chair and dine with me?
Peppers. I've got an onion here that I'm just going to chop up. Now when you're dicing onions, there are two ends. There's the end with the hairs on it and the other end. We're just going to slice off this other end, and then we're going to peel the excess skin off. You want to make sure you leave the other end intact, because that is what's going to hold the onion together when we go to peel it and dice it. Then I just kind of go in half like this. You should have two ends that look just like so. Then we score the onion down the middle like this. And try and watch your fingers when you're doing this. Then we go long ways. And then across. We have nice uniform pieces of onion. And we're just going to use half the onion. I'm going to save the other half for another dish. This goes over here. I've already got some oil heated up on my skillet. And I've got a pepper here. Slicing peppers, I just go along the sides here, trying to watch out for the membrane. And then we're just going to slice these into little strips and then come across the side here and dice them into smaller pieces. Again, saving one piece for another dish. And you can see our vegetables here are nice and uniformly chopped. I'm just going to go ahead and slide those into my skillet. You've got a nice sizzle going on these. I'm just going to give them a little stir. We want to let these cook down a little bit. I'm going to season with just a little salt and just a little pepper to really bring up the flavor of these. And to keep them from sticking, I'm going to add just a little. These vegetables are just kind of sweating out, getting a nice color on them. I'm going to go ahead and add my meat. You can use any kind of meat you want. You want to use beef, ground pork, or any kind of sausage. I'm using a pork chorizo, which is kind of like a Mexican sausage. It's got a little heat to it. And I'm only going to use about half of this because I'm going to use the rest in another dish. I'm just going to kind of squeeze that out. And it's got a little fat to it, so it's going to render nicely in the pan. I'm just going to rinse my hands off real quick. Take my spatula here and I'm going to break up the meat. So it cooks nice and evenly. And this is smelling really good, guys. Like, I'm so excited. Alright, we're just going to let that go for a little bit. So here's the trick to peppers. You just kind of take your knife along the top like this, and then you dig your knife into the core and pull it right out. And then I just give the pepper a little tap to get all the extra seeds out. And we are ready to go. Stuffed peppers, it's usually a rice dish. And you can do any kind of like meat you want with it. Meat, veggies. I'm going to garnish mine with a nice slice of provolone, and then it's going to go in the oven. I've got my oven preheated to 400 degrees. We're just going to pop those in and let the cheese get nice and bubbling on top, and they will be ready to go. What's good about this dish, you can make it as a meal, it works as a side dish. You can prep like a large quantity of it in advance and store them in the freezer, and then you've got some ready to go meals for throughout the week. So it's a nice hearty dish too. It's protein and veggies. The rice gives you a little bit of good carbs. Okay, so our meat is looking really good here, nice and cooked through. So I'm just going to add a few cups of rice, and I've got some leftover rice here. Okay guys, our meat mixture is ready, so we're just going to turn that off. I've got my 2 peppers here. I'm just going to stand these guys up like that. Drizzle them with a little oil. And then we're going to fill them. A nice, generous helping of our filling here. Nice and heaping.
And we're just going to let that cook down.
Alright, those are looking pretty good. I'm just going to lay my cheese on top. Nice big thick slice of provolone, and these are going to go into the oven. And our oven is preheated to 400 degrees. We're just going to let that cheese get nice and bubbly on top. So we're just going to throw that in there for about 10 to 12 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and set our timer here. And I will see you guys when they are ready. Babies are ready to come out, and they are smelling great. Just going to turn off the timer there. Pull these out. Oh yeah. Let me grab a plate and a fork. We'll slide these right onto the plate. And you can see here, we've got a nice bubbly color on our cheese, which is exactly what we're looking for. I'm just going to dig in. Yum. So good, you guys. The chorizo gives it a nice heat. The rice is a good filler. This is not only a tasty dish, but it's good for you too. This is mostly just veggies and protein. The cheese gives you a good fat, but it also has some protein in it. The rice is a good starch. So you're getting all your food groups in one little meal. So it's really good. Next, I'm going to show you my leftover rice take on a frittata. so stay tuned. Alright guys, it is frittata time. I've got my skillet going, and to that I'm just going to add a couple tablespoons of butter. That is going to help us saute our vegetables nicely, but it's also going to help prevent the frittata from sticking to the pan too much. While I'm waiting for the butter to melt, I have the rest of my onion and pepper here from the stuffed peppers. I'm just going to go ahead and give those a quick chop. There's our onion. Here's our pepper. I'm sure a lot of you are asking, you know, what is a frittata? A frittata is more or less a Spanish take on an omelet. But instead of going to all the trouble of trying to fold the omelet or flip the omelet over and making a mess, you basically stick the mixture in the oven and let it cook kind of like a souffle. We're going to whip our eggs up really good, get a lot of air in there. And it's going to puff up nice and golden brown, and we're going to finish it off with some cheese. It is going to be delicious. So there is our butter. I'm going to throw in our vegetables here. I'm going to let those play nicely. Just get a spoon here to get that going. I like to season as I go, so a little salt, a little pepper, adding those layers of flavor, guys. Alright guys, those vegetables are just sizzling away, so I'm going to grab the rest of my chorizo here, also left over from the stuffed peppers. We're just going to squeeze the rest of that out here into our skillet. I used about half the tube earlier, and I'm using about half the tube for my frittata. And again, when you're making the frittata, you can throw anything you want into it. If you want to do just a basic cheese, maybe like some bacon or sausage. You can even add potatoes in it. What I like about it, eggs are a pretty good canvas for many dishes. So we can use our rice here. It's a really good filler. And then to kind of keep with the Mexican theme, I'm doing the chorizo with the sauteed veggies, and we are going to throw a little cheese in there as well. Alright guys, that is cooking down pretty good. So I'm going to throw my rice into the mixture. This is going to provide a nice filler so we won't have to use as many eggs here. And I'm just going to do about 2 cups of rice. Just using a half-cup scoop here. Okay, this guy we're done with for now. The rice is already pre-cooked, so we just got to get a little reheat on this rice here. We just want to make sure our chorizo is cooked through. Pork you want to be about 165, and since it's already kind of broken up like this, it cooks pretty quickly. And it's a fattier sausage, so it renders nicely. And it's going to get some nice color on our rice here. While that's continuing to cook down, I'm going to move on to my eggs. We're going to do 4 eggs. And I just want to crack them one at a time so I can watch for eggshells. Done with this guy here. Rinse my hands off. I always rinse my hands off when I'm working with meat or eggs or any kind of raw protein. We're just going to season the eggs a little bit. Some salt, a little pepper, continuing to add layers. And then we're going to whisk our eggs. Beat them really good here. Try and incorporate as much air into the eggs as you can. The more airy the eggs, the more fluffier frittata is going to be. We want ours to puff up really good. I'm just going to go hard on these eggs. Looking for nice foamy bubbles. I'm going to add a little bit of milk, about a 1/4 cup. That's going to keep it from drying out. And to that, I've got some cheese here. I'm going to do about 1/2 cup. This is just a Mexican blend. It's got different cheeses in it, queso and jack and all that good stuff. I'm going to pour this mixture right into the pan. Kind of get that egg mixture all over. We want to incorporate the egg and the mixture evenly so each bite is the same. Now instead of trying to flip these or scramble these, we're going to take them off the heat and throw them directly into the oven. I've got the oven preheated to 400 degrees. That's just going to go for 10 minutes. I'm going to set my timer. Then we're going to take that out. We're going to throw the rest of our cheese on top and throw that back in and let that cheese get nice and bubbly. So I will see you guys in a minute. Let's check on that frittata. Oh yeah, looking pretty good. I'm just going to finish it off with the rest of our cheese here. Sprinkle that right on top. And then we're going to pop it right back in the oven for a few minutes just to let that cheese get nice and bubbly on it. Alright guys, it is frittata time. Oh yeah, look at this guys. Isn't that delicious? Nice hearty meal all in one skillet. I've got my plate and fork here. And I'm just going to got my plate and fork here. A nice hearty meal all in one skillet. I'm just going to cut a nice generous piece out of here. And we'll slide that right onto my plate. You can see here guys all the layers here. We've got the rice, the chorizo, the cheese. I'm just going to give this a little taste here. It's a little hot, so be careful. Oh yeah. Guys, this is great. The egg is a nice binder for all of our ingredients. The cheese really brings it together. We've got the heat from the chorizo. We've got our onions and peppers. So good, guys. Next, I'm going to show you guys an interesting take on an arancini. So stay tuned. Okay guys, last but not least, arancini. Now those of you who are not familiar, arancini is usually an Italian rice dish. Usually it's risotto that you form into little balls and bread and fry. Now I'm going to do a variation on that today with my leftover Spanish rice. And I've already got some oil going in a skillet. We're just going to reheat this rice. I'm going to do 3 cups of rice here. This is going to make a pretty good amount. Now with the risotto, it's usually uncooked rice and you add liquid to it to kind of cook it through slowly and you get a nice kind of pasty, soft mixture, and you let it cool down, and that's what you use to make the balls with. But I thought it'd be an interesting idea to take some rice that is already finished and go that route. I'm just going to add a little more oil, keep our rice from sticking. We just kind of want to reheat the rice. It's already cooked. The other thing with risotto, you know, with prep time and letting it sit and everything, to make your arancini, I mean, you're talking a couple hours, and I'm a pretty patient guy, but I only have so much patience. So, we're going to do a really quick cook on this. I've got some chicken stock here. I'm going to add about a ½ cup of that. Since our rice is already cooked, we don't need a ton of liquid. We just need enough to bring everything together. I'm going to put that on. We're going to give that a nice little stir. Kind of let that chicken stock cook down a little bit. And lastly, our cheese. I've got my Mexican blend here. It's just cheddar jack and queso and all kinds of good stuff. Manchego. I'm going to add a few cups of the cheese. I'm going to save the rest for our topping. And we're just going to stir this in so that cheese gets nice and incorporated. Now with the risotto, usually you thicken it with like Parmesan, something like that. And the liquid absorbs into the rice and the rice gets nice and plump, and then you throw the cheese in to kind of thicken your mixture together. So this is just a kind of quick variation on the recipe with my leftover Spanish rice. I'm just going to continue to let this cook down a little bit so the cheese gets melted and everything comes together nicely. And let the chicken stock cook down. And I'm going to season this just a little, some salt. We don't need too much salt because the chicken stock is pretty salty itself. And some pepper. Just kind of incorporate that in. That's looking pretty good, guys. I'm going to take it off the heat. We want to let this mixture cool before we work with it, because we're going to be using our hands in forming the balls, and we don't want to burn our hands on the rice. So I will see you guys shortly. Alright guys, our rice has cooled down and we are ready to make our balls. So I'm just going to take a little handful of rice here. And I'm going to kind of work it into a nice ball shape. You can make these as big or as little as you want. I'm going to kind of do just a medium size. I don't want them too big, not too small. We're just going to roll them in our flour, drop them in the egg wash, and roll them in our breadcrumbs. Now the egg wash is just a couple eggs and some water. And I'm using a panko breadcrumb because it's going to get nice and crispy for us. And you can hear that sizzle. I always love that when I drop my food in and I get that sizzle going. You know it's going to be good. And then we'll just go ahead and get the rest of these guys going here. Alright guys, these are looking pretty good. I'm gonna just go ahead and flip them over. Yeah, they're getting nice and golden brown. We don't want them too dark, but we want them to have a nice good color on them. And I'm just doing a few here. I don't want to overcrowd my pan because they're going to get, they won't fry as well. These babies are ready to come out now. I've got a little plate here with a towel on it, so I can let these kind of rest for a minute and catch all the grease. Nothing worse than a greasy ball. We're going to flip these ones over. Yeah, they're getting a nice golden brown color on there, which is what we want. Alright guys, while we're waiting on the rest of these babies to come out, we're going to go ahead and make our sauce. Now, traditionally with an arancini, it's served with marinara, but since I'm using the Spanish rice, I'm going to make a queso. So I'm going to show you a really quick and simple queso dish here. I've got a half a brick of cream cheese, which I have just softened in the microwave. To that I'm going to add about a half cup of salsa. And one of my little secrets here is this mango chutney. Now chutney, it's kind of like a preserve or a jam, but it's got chunks of actual fruit in it. So I'm just going to do about a tablespoon of that. We're just going to whisk this together with our fork. Make sure you get all that cream cheese broke up really good. Okay, and these babies are ready to come out. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the heat. You can eat them as kind of like a snack, or you can do it like an appetizer. It's also great like game day food. I'm just going to grab a plate here. How I like to plate this, I like to take a little of the sauce, and I just like to get a big old glob of it with my spoon. Get a big old glob of it on my plate with my spoon, and I will just take my spoon and smear it across the plate like that. I'm trying to get fancy here. And then we'll just take the arancini and plop them right down on the plate. About 4 or 5. Now let's taste this and see how it turned out. Oh, listen to that. Fork goes right through it. You can hear that crunch. Get some of the sauce on it. Mmm. So good. The rice is nice and filling. We've got that cheese in there with it. A great crust on the outside from the panko. You can use any kind of breadcrumb you want, really. I just really enjoy the panko because I feel like it, you get a better crunch out of it. So, this has been leftover rice with the Sartorial Chef. Thanks for popping in. And until next time, arrivederci.